Well, hello there. It's a really exciting time around here. I thought it would be a really neat idea to actually bring Kayla, my daughter, who is a high school senior, on to talk a little bit about her experience with college admission, how she went through this process, and to get a firsthand view from a student who really went through this in a very mindful, very intentional way, to share with you some tips that might help with your own teenagers. Of course, if you're a parent of a high school senior and you're currently still in decision mode, I hope that maybe she'll be able to answer some information that might help your teenager to be able to make their final decision with confidence. And because so many of you have been a part of this journey for such a long time, I just really felt like it would be great to get a first-hand view of the process and what she feel went really well and what worked, in order for you to get some advice and tips directly from her with what she feel really worked well. And who knows, maybe she'll share some things that she wishes that I did differently. So we're going to go ahead and talk with Kayla. Without further ado, here's the interview. We're here with Kayla. Thank you for agreeing to do this. I appreciate it. And as you know, so many of you have been part of this journey. She's now a high school senior. She's less than a couple of months away from graduation and has made her final decision. And I thought it would just be a great opportunity for her to talk a bit about it. And hopefully it'll be a very authentic conversation. Tell me a little bit about the beginning. Do you have any memories of what those initial thoughts were about college?
I think it started in 8th grade. Most of the initial thoughts were, it's going to happen, we're going to take our time, figure out what's best for me. There was no stress involved, we have to do this right now. We just took our time and kind of eased into it.
Did you have colleges in mind at the beginning or no?
No.
None?
One.
Okay. And where did that one come from?
You went there.
Okay. So you sort of just knew because I had gone there.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the approach to the search. So in terms of at the very beginning, understandably, you don't have a lot of memories of 3 or 4 years ago. But what I recall was really helpful was having a conversation that helped you to understand what you clearly did and did not want at that time. Okay, and that was where we did the hunt for the perfect college. We did the card sort. We actually did it with some of my admissions formula members. You were sort of the guinea pig at the time going through it. And I don't know how many memories you have of that or not.
I remember.
So going through that process of looking at, I think at the time it was about 50 cards. Do you remember any of the things that came out of that? I obviously have the picture of it, but I'm curious what came out of it for you.
I remember not wanting to be landlocked.
Not wanting to be in a landlocked state.
And wanting there to be sun and wanting it to be liberal. That's a huge value for me.
At that point, did you have a major? You were young, but did you have anything you were thinking of?
I remember thinking I wanted to do political science because I'm very much into politics.
Tell me about the process. How did you go through it and actually decide what it is you really wanted and needed in a school? What are some of the things that we did to help you?
We did the hunt with the cards, and then we just started talking and having conversations about maybe what states I wanted to be in, if I wanted to be in state or out of state, how far I wanted to be. That's most of what I remember.
When did you start to think about what you wanted to study? Talk a little bit about that journey for you of how you figured out at this point what it is you think you want to study and specialize in college. That was never something that I was forcing you to do. I will say that up front because I think that philosophically we have a real big problem when we're trying to get you at 15 to 17 years old to figure out what you want to do in your life.
I think it started during COVID when everything was locked down and quarantine. I went down to the beach and I realized that everything cleared up. The water cleared up, the beaches cleared up, there was nobody around, and it was amazing and beautiful, and I don't think I'll ever be able to experience that again, especially here. And I just went from there and I started reading books about the ocean and environmentalism and just trying to connect with the ocean and the environment and connect people to the environment. So I landed for a while on environmental studies, not environmental science. From there, I have just grown closer to the ocean and wanting to study it more and conserve it for future generations. So now I will be majoring in marine science.
Other pieces that I remember about that, you were reading books, you were starting to talk to people, you really approached different opportunities in the community that were related to marine things and became more exposed to it. How do you think that doing those things helped you in your application process?
I think it allowed me to be really honest my applications. I felt like I really put my best foot forward and I was authentic in my application, and I feel like a lot of people do things for their application and for college, but I more did it to learn.
And then it came out that way for sure in your applications. Can you tell everyone where you ended up applying?
I ended up applying 3 in-state and 2 out-of-state. I applied to UC Santa Cruz, UC Santa Barbara, Cal Poly SLO,
San Luis Obispo,
University of Oregon, and Oregon State.
You had a very tight list. There were 5 schools. Did you ever at any point feel like you weren't applying to enough schools?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Even when friends were applying to 10, 15, 20, you didn't feel that way? Why do you think that is?
Because I didn't want to apply anywhere else.
Okay.
That was kind of it.
Okay.
We talked about some other ones, but they ended up being landlocked or the weather.
What do you know was the thread that tied the schools together? Similarities.
I would say liberal, politically, open-minded, and diverse.
What were the majors?
It was environmental studies, marine studies, and marine science.
And at what point did you realize that you didn't want a Bachelor of Science, a BS, you wanted really more of a BA, a Bachelor of Arts?
I wanted my major to focus on humanity too, not just the environment.
Okay, but why not the science component?
Well, there's science in each of the majors. I just didn't want it to be overwhelmingly science.
Let's talk a little bit about what you did that worked for you in terms of your application process.
We started the summer before my senior year. We went slow. I worked when I wanted and when I felt inspired to do so. There was no pressure because we had so much time. I feel like that really was reflected in my application.
Just sharing with you some of the things that we did. Junior year is a tough year. It's a tough year, right? You've got all these AP tests and all these things that you're doing. You were in some really rigorous classes. I intentionally said to you, we need to come up with a schedule that's going to work for you after you take a little bit of a break. So we actually went on vacation. We were gone for a couple of weeks. And then we sat down, and one of your initial questions is, I don't really understand when I'm even supposed to be turning these things in. Like, she had no idea the timeline. And that was interesting for me because I just assumed that students going into their senior year, someone would have told them that. They didn't. We initially sat down together and mapped that out, right? So you understood the different types of applications that you would be doing. And then what specifically did you get started on towards the beginning of the summer, I think beginning of July?
I did the Common App, just the basic questions. And then we went into the essay prompts and we looked at each of the prompts and when I was going to respond to.
What would you say was the most challenging part of the application process for you?
I think the prompts, just getting started, was difficult. And then once we started going, I think we changed the prompt that I was writing to for the Common App and just making sure that it was all right and where it needed to be.
Remember first you brainstormed everything and then you looked at the prompts after. You didn't start by looking at the prompts.
Yeah, no, I remember that.
And I think that that was good.
Yeah.
Because you could figure out your topics first and then which prompts they worked for. What are some of the problems that some of your friends or other people you know really had during the whole admissions process? What do you think were some of the stresses or things that they faced that you didn't face?
I think a lot of people were really confused. A lot of people didn't even know how to get into the applications, to the Common App, to the UCs. There was a lot of confusion, not a lot of help. And I obviously had a lot of help. And I think, like I said, just getting started was really difficult for a lot of people. And then once they were in it, they just had no one they could talk to.
And what made you feel so confident going through this admissions process?
I think knowing that I'd end up where I was supposed to end up.
And how did you know that?
Because all 5 schools that I applied to were perfect fits. I'd be happy at any of them. If I didn't get into the Reach school, I still had amazing opportunities and experiences.
Okay. So some questions from members of the admissions formula. Towards the end, when you made your decision, did one clearly rise to the top, or was it hard for you at the end to sort of decide?
It was definitely hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one was a reach and one was a good bet. So they were two. It wasn't based on selectivity at all. So what was so hard about it?
They both offered similar and different. We had the hunt cards and we did one of the schools and then the other school. We sorted it based on what I wanted out of my college experience, academically and socially, and sorted them like, oh, this one went here, this one goes here, this one doesn't matter. And then we looked at them at the end and saw that one offered a lot more than the other.
Well, and they were different, just to clarify that. What we did is we took the normal cards. There were, by this point, first time we'd done the hunt, there were about 50 cards. And then slowly we've added to the activity. So there's about 75 cards now, which is a lot. And so what we did this time is the cards that had to do with both of the schools, we'd pull up a card and it might say liberal political environment. Well, we obviously knew that it had that because if not, it wouldn't have been on the list for her to apply to, right? She made a middle stack with all of the cards that fit both schools. And then we had one school on one side, one school on another. And if a card only applied to that one school, she'd put it there. So at the end, it was interesting because a lot of similarities, the non-negotiable factors for sure, both colleges had. And then for one school, it had 10 or 15 different things that were not even existent at the other, and the same vice versa. So it really was a difficult conversation to say, which things do you want more? At this point, after going through the whole process and seeing the schools and all that, tell everyone how you ultimately decided and what the school was that you picked.
I decided on UC Santa Barbara, and it was mostly because of the major that I was accepted into, the marine science major. It's brand new, which was really exciting, and it offered just incredible hands-on research opportunities with your small cohort of, I think, 12 kids and faculty, professors, grad students. So you work alongside everybody instead of under. I think that was the biggest thing.
That was sort of the deciding factor,
and
as well as the sun. So initially we have a hunt card that says bring on the sunshine, please. And I always knew that this was my beach girl who liked surfing and wanted to be near the ocean. And that was something that really has brought her great joy, but also peace, right? You know, that sort of blue mind of calmness. And it was a concern all the way through, right? What did you learn on campus visits? How did people handle the rain?
Sun lamps. And embracing the rain. And which I could have done. Totally could have done.
Yeah.
Would have done, actually.
Yeah.
I was very set on my other school until I got into San Diego.
And what was your other school?
Oregon State.
And I want to bring this up because, you know, Oregon State's acceptance rate is like 80%, and Santa Barbara is a clear reach for anyone. It's under 20%, way lower for this specific major. And both schools were dead even until the very end. So I think that's important, and I think that helped you, right? That helped you to go through it. Is there anything that you wish that I had done differently in this process besides forcing you to do this Q&A?
I think at the beginning, mostly, there was a lot of, oh, are you going to do this? Oh, are you going to do this? Oh, are you going to do this? And I...
Prodding me, nagging.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then in sending me things, sending me majors and opportunities and...
Emailing or texting you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot. And I kind of was like, hey, I'll do it on my own, I promise. Just maybe back off a little bit. And she did, and then I did. Yeah,
and then you started going down rabbit holes. So being overly excited, as we all are as parents, you know, we find things and she's starting to think about what she wants and she hits on something. And then I'm like, look at this, look at that, check it out. And it was via text and she was like, slow your roll, right? Like, I got this, Mom. I'll let you know when I need the help. And I think that sort of check-in was important, you know, and I liked it because it meant that you were ready to take the reins. Right. And you did.
Yep.
I backed off.
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Totally.
Good. What do you think was the best thing that I did in the process with you, for you?
Best thing.
She's taking a long time to think about this.
I think just keep the calm about it. Like, everything happened just slowly and there was no pressure. Like that, I think that was huge.
Okay.
No pressure. Yeah.
Was there anything that you did in high school where I said to you, hey, this is something you need to take, or class you need to take, or something you need to do to be more competitive? There were definitely a couple things that I would always lay out the options for you. What were those things so they know?
To take 3 years of a language. I started my freshman year in Spanish 3 and I was done at Spanish 4. I did not want to do anymore. And then my mom looked at me and said, if you do AP Spanish, you are going to appear more competitive. And also, if you pass the test, you will get credit in college. And so I started the class and I wanted to drop. I didn't want to do it.
It was after the pandemic and you'd been online for language.
Yeah. And I was over it. I was like, this is awful. And then I kept going, and it got easier, and I decided to not drop it, and I passed the test.
And what now with that language? What are you thinking?
And now I am thinking of minoring in Spanish.
So it doesn't always end up that way, but I think that sometimes you do need to do some things, and it's always a choice, right? And I know that's how I laid it out for you. As I said, for 99% of the schools on your list, it's not going to matter. For this one, it will, or it might. And so this is your option, and you hemmed and hawed, and then but ended up doing it, and now want to minor in it, which is great. What is the most important thing that you believe the current juniors and beyond should be really thinking about when they're going through this process? What would you say is your number one piece of advice?
To be excited and not scared. Just to be excited. And right now I'm getting a little nervous for sure. But I think during the application process, so many people feel like it's a chore instead of seeing it as this is going to be the next chapter of my life and I get to live in this place. And
I love that.
And be excited.
And what did you get into that helped you to get excited? What were you doing?
Looking into the colleges and looking at the activities, the clubs, the sports, the location, the surrounding area.
Doing things to help picture yourself there, whatever you think helped you the most. What advice would you have for the seniors that are still in decision mode and they're trying to figure out what do they do now?
Pros and cons list.
Okay.
I love a good pros and cons list.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we did with the hunt.
Yeah.
The hunt cards is what can this offer? What can this offer? Do I want this more? And just going back and forth and really sitting down to think about it instead of just being like, ah.
What advice would you have for parents in terms of campus visits? We did 3 different rounds. 2 were very casual. 1 was more guided, more of these formal tours.
Ask your questions, but don't ask too many questions.
Okay.
Kind of let the kid get a feel for it. Let them listen. If they want to ask a question, obviously by all means, but just back off a little bit.
Okay, to back off?
Yeah.
Okay. What were your favorite visits that you did? Were they the ones where we went on the campus tours or where we did our own thing?
Did our own thing.
Why?
Because we got to pinpoint the parts of campus and the facilities and the classes
that you needed to see.
I wanted to see.
Yeah. And the tours were kind of...
The tours were like, oh, there's this building.
Yeah. Like, a little boring too.
I'm never going to take classes in that building.
Yeah. And that's what we did before each one, right? We set the intention to say, okay, what do we need to see? What do we need to ask? That kind of thing. Do you remember how many times we did the Hunt for the Perfect College? And when we did it or when you did it? Because we didn't do it together, I don't think, every time.
I want to say 4 times. I know we did it in 8th grade, and we did it before we went on the first college tours. And then we did it on the plane.
Yeah? What, do you remember why we did it on the plane? Because I remember.
No.
Okay. So when we were headed to the Oregon schools, I was really clear that we probably would not be going back. So it was like, this is it, one and done. We're not going to be spending all this money to go back. And I asked her what questions she wanted answers to, and she didn't know. And she's the one that brought the cards. She brought them and then pulled them out on the plane and was like sorting them. And it helped to figure out, you looked at all the cards and then it was like, what questions are you going to need to ask? Right. So, and that was helpful. You got the questions, you got the answers to that.
And then I did it before my applications.
What did you do that for?
Just to hone in on what spots I want to hit and explain why I would want to go to that school.
Yeah, so a lot of them, they'll ask those questions of why do you want to go here? Why do you want to major in this? And by looking at that, you could remember and to help with your research. Someone asked a fill in the blank question with this. If you could go back and tell yourself something at the very beginning of this process, quote, don't waste any time worrying about blank. It's not going to matter in the end. What would you have not worried about that you did worry about?
Where I would end up.
You said you didn't worry about where you were going to end up. But you did.
I definitely did. I did. I think it was less than a lot of people for sure.
Okay.
But I think it's very common to think, oh, where am I going to be? Even in the past couple months, I was thinking that.
Yeah,
Because,
I think more at the end. I think more, well, the more at the end, you're like trying, because it's very different.
Yeah.
It was like, are you going to go out of state? Or are you going to stay in state? It was more that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
To not worry about that as much.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that even as a student that you worried about that you feel like you shouldn't have worried about as much? What about those B's?
Don't worry about B.
Were you worried about those?
No.
Okay.
I wasn't. I
Okay.
mean, there was maybe a few classes where if I did get a B, it would be because I was being lazy.
Okay. Good night. Thank you for the admission on that. Okay.
And turn in your stuff.
Turn in your stuff. Okay. What piece of advice would you give to a current junior to help her to dig into the college search process?
I think the same as before. Be excited. Don't think of it as a chore.
Okay.
It's not a chore.
So, final question. Final question for Kayla. What is something that you are really, really excited about in terms of college? What are you looking forward to?
Freedom.
Freedom, yeah.
Freedom and
Yeah.
learning differently. I think I'm really, really excited for that because my major is so research and hands-on focus. I'm really excited about that because I got like none of it.
I'm
So,
excited for that too.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you. The best is yet to come.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.